All right, so the big skill. Now, this is a really important skill. A lot of you will use something like this. It's called dimensional analysis. Our nursing department actually asks us to hit this very hard because you use this a lot in nursing as you're converting between different dosages and things like that. And so, what is dimensional analysis? How do we use it to convert between different units? And then also in this section, we're going to address what's called the metric system as well. And we're going to carry these two topics will be part of all three of the remaining sections. So here's what we've got. I will give you this. This is not stuff you have to memorize, although the more you work with it, the more familiar with it you will be. But what we've got here is some relationships in this box. Okay, we know that 12 inches is 1 foot, 3 feet is the same thing as a yard. There's 36 inches in a yard. 5,280 feet in a mile, etc. And we could come up with other relationships as well. These units right here are the main units of length in what's called the English system, or some books call it the US system, because we are the only country that uses this system primarily anymore. And so you can see there's really no rhyme or reason to what these conversions are. So what we got is we're going to have this skill called dimensional analysis to be able to convert. So here we go. Here's my first example. If you can understand this first example, then it's going to go well for you. If you don't, ask me a question. Okay, let's nail this down because I want you to do great on this. So what I want to do is I want to convert 40 inches to feet. Okay, for whatever purpose, whatever reason, I need to convert between these two units. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to take what we start with, in this case, 40 inches. So I'm going to write down 40. I'm going to abbreviate and use inches. Now, in the box up above that I just pointed out, there is a direct relationship given to me between inches and what I want, which is feet. Okay, so find that for yourself. Make sure you can identify it. The box up above says that there are 12 inches in every foot. Now, here's what you have to do. And the nice thing about dimensional analysis is I know sometimes students come in and they've been taught, hey, if I'm converting from smaller to bigger, I do this. If I'm converting from bigger to smaller, I got to do this. And that becomes a pain because you end up forgetting, right? And so the dimensional analysis will make sure that you 100% of the time know what to do. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to multiply by that relationship. That's supposed to be a multiplication symbol. And we're going to use that relationship from the box in the form of what's called a unit fraction. So I'm going to just draw a little bar. Don't be scared by the word fraction. I've started with inches. I want to end up with feet. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that relationship. 12 inches is 1 foot. And I am going to put the 12 inches in the denominator and the 1 foot in the numerator. And the reason I'm doing that is I want the units I do not want anymore to cancel out. So notice I have an inches in the numerator, the top, I have an inches in the denominator and the bottom. Now those two units, they cancel out. They're gone. And now what's the only unit that I'm left with? Feet. Yes. So my result is going to be feet. And then the nice thing is, since the 12 is down here in the bottom, what am I going to do with the 40 and the 12 in order to get how many feet? Not multiply it. Since it's in the bottom, I am going to divide by it. Okay, that's what a fraction bar means. A fraction bar is just a division symbol. And so since I have 40 up top and 12 in the bottom, I'm just going to divide. So here we go. I'm going to come over. Here's my good friend, the calculator. And so I'm going to take 40. I'm going to divide by 12. If I need to round, always make sure to follow instructions when you're doing your homework. And so this is 3.33333. I'm just going to round to the tenths place because I didn't give us any instruction to do otherwise. But always read carefully when you're doing your homework so that you don't accidentally get the problem wrong because you didn't round to the hundredths place or something like that. So I'm just going to round this to 3.3 feet is the result. And that right there is called dimensional analysis. It's the process of converting between units. Are you tracking with me? Are we doing okay? All right, we're just going to practice this several times. So exercise 1, once you do the same thing, I'm going to give you about 35 seconds. Convert 936 feet to yards, please. So this one, we start off with 936 feet. What is my relationship between feet and yards given in the box? Said with authority, I love it. 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. So when I'm considering my unit ratio right here, where am I going to put the feet and where am I going to put the yards? Feet is going to go in the denominator. And if I asked you, I'm pretty sure you tell me we're putting the feet in the denominator. So I have one up top, one in the bottom, and they're going to cancel now. And so 3 feet is 1 yard. When I cancel out my feet, I'm left with just the units yards in the top, which is what I want. And again, my dimensional analysis says, what am I going to do between the 936 and the 3? What operation am I going to do? I'm going to divide. I got 1 in the top, 1 in the bottom. That's a division. So that is going to turn out to be 312 yards. Anybody got a question or an issue that we have to investigate? If you're feeling all right, do exercise 2. If you're not feeling all right, let's talk. So this problem starts off with 5 miles. And now I have my relationship. It's told to me up in the box that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So when I put the units in my unit ratio, which one's going to go in the top? Which one's going to go in the bottom? Well, how about this? Let me simplify the question. Which one, 5,280 feet or 1 mile, am I going to put in the bottom of my unit fraction? I'm going to put the 1 mile. Does everyone understand why I'm putting the 1 mile there? Because once you understand that, that's all you got to know. You can do any dimensional analysis for any conversions at all, and you're going to see that in each of the next 3 sections. Okay, so if you can iron that out now, all is going to be good for you. So please do not hesitate to ask a question. So the 1 mile, I've got the 5,280 feet. Again, I put the mile in the bottom so that they'll cancel. This time, the dimensional analysis tells me, what am I going to do between the 5 and the 5,280? Yeah, they're both in the top, so I'm going to multiply. Okay, does everyone see the difference between that and the previous one where I had to divide? Again, if you see that, you understand everything that you need to understand for this. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to multiply the 5 times the 5,280, and that gives me 26,400 feet. All right, one more very straightforward problem. Exercise 3. Go ahead and convert 9 inches to yards, please. All right, here is my 9 inches. I'm going to multiply by my unit ratio. I have a direct one-step conversion between inches and yards from the box at the top. I am told that there are 36 inches in 1 yard. And so which one of those, the 36 inches or the 1 yard, is going to go in the denominator? The 36 inches, yes. And then the 1 yard goes in the top. There is my unit conversion. And now, again, my inches cancel. That is my whole goal. Now I'm going to do on my calculator 9 divided by 36, and I get 0.25. So 9 inches is 0.25, or if you just reduce the fraction, it's 1/4 of a yard. All right, before I do the next problem, are you tracking with me? Are we doing okay? Okay, now sometimes you don't have the direct one-step conversion, particularly if you're converting between the US system and the metric system. You might need to do more than one. Now, what we're going to do, example 2, is we're going to convert 10 miles to yards. Now, of course, there is a direct conversion. You could Google it, but I didn't give it to you just so that we could practice what happens in a situation where I don't have the direct conversion. So here we go. We're going to start off with my 10 miles. Now, in the box of information that I gave you up at the top, we do not have a direct conversion from miles to yards, unfortunately. So, what do I know that I can convert miles into? Okay, so that's going to be my first step. I'm going to use what I have to convert miles into feet. Okay, so just like we've done, I know that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. And now when I cancel miles, I am left with the units feet. But that's not what I want. The problem says I want to take miles and convert it to yards. So we're going to work again. I'm going to put another multiplication and another fraction. Now you're welcome to do this as 2 separate steps. You can go ahead and do that multiplication and get your answer and then do it. But I like to just do it all in one. That way I'm just really it just saves like 4 seconds. So whatever you prefer to do. Now I do have the conversion from feet to yards from the box up above. The conversion from 3 feet to yards is 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. So there goes my feet, they're gone, and I'm left with the unit yards. So sometimes you have to do 2, maybe 3. It depends. Like it depends on what kind of situation you're in, how familiar you are with the units, anything like that. So now, as I go with my calculator, first off, what am I going to do with the 10 and the 5,280? I'm going to do what with those numbers? And then when I got that, when I multiply and I get that result, what am I going to do with that number there and the 3 that's right here? Divide, yes. See, the dimensional analysis tells you exactly what to do. You don't have to remember anything. You just got to do what you're told right there. So 10 times 5,280 is 52,800. I'm now going to divide that by 3, and I get 17,600 yards. Yeah.
I the I took the 5,280 divided by 30 feet, and then I times that leaves me.
Yes, what we're going to learn later in this class is multiplication is what's called a commutative property. You don't need to know that now. That's 2 units from now, but that just means you can multiply things in any order. Yeah, so that absolutely does not matter if you did the division first and then multiplied by 10. All right, exercise 4. Take 6,160 yards and convert it to miles. So you're just doing the reverse process of what we just did. So I've got 6,160 yards. I'm asked to convert that to miles. Once again, I do not have the direct one-to-one conversion from yards to miles. So I'm going to use what I have. The first thing I have is I can convert yards into feet. And then I'm going to convert feet into miles, which is what my table gives me. So 6,160 yards. I know that there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So I'm going to put the yards in the bottom to get those to cancel out. Then I'm going to multiply again because I want my final answer to be miles. And the box up above says there's 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So that gets my feet to cancel. And now the only units I'm left with are miles. Again, just like before, it doesn't matter what order you do these operations in. So I'm just going to do the 6,160. I'm going to multiply that by 3. And then I'm going to divide that by 5,280. And I end up with 3.5. One more. Convert 2.5 miles into inches with the information you are given. Where would you want to use the 36 inches? Okay, so in case you're not hearing the question, if you're curious, the question is, we used 3 feet as 1 yard. Why didn't we use 36 inches as 1 yard? And the answer to that is because I want to convert to miles. And up in the box, I do not have any conversion between inches and miles directly. And so that, if you start here and do 1 yard is 36 inches, that does not help you get any closer to where you want to be. Now, in the problem we're presently doing, that might be something that would be useful. I think, in fact, this problem, there's 2 ways. If I'm looking at what we have, there's no, there's just gonna, with the information I've given, there's just 1 way that's gonna get you to the destination. Now, in reality, you can go onto Google, it can tell you the 1-step conversion between this, and you could do this in 1 step. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, great. Awesome. All right, so this one starts off with 2.5 miles. I'm asked to convert this to inches. And again, just with the information I've given you, there's only really 1 practical first step, is I can convert miles into feet, because that's the only thing up in the box up above, the only thing involving miles that I've given you right here. So we're just going to use that given information. So I know that in 1 mile, there are 5,280 feet. That gets the miles to cancel, and now my present unit is feet. So if I was asked how many feet are in 2.5 miles, I'd be done. Just got to use my calculator. But we were asked for inches. And so again, from the table up above, or maybe you knew this one, we know that in 1 foot, there are 12 inches. Now the feet cancel. My final unit there is the unit that I want. It's inches. So now I just go to my calculator, my good friend, and I say, okay, 2.5 times the 5,280, then times 12, and that is going to be 158,400 inches. That's a lot of inches. Did anybody get something different? Did I do okay with my calculator work? Because we know from the last class we were together, I have some issues sometimes. All right, well, we'll come back to dimensional analysis. Okay, we've just been practicing doing dimensional analysis with the units that we use in the US or the English system for length. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn our attention to the system that the rest of the world uses, and we use kind of unofficially a lot, which is called the metric system. So in the metric system, the great thing about the metric system, the best thing about it, the reason that it's so useful and so user friendly is the metric system is a base 10 system for measuring physical quantities. It's the same base that we use when we are doing arithmetic. It's base 10. One benefit over the US system is that unit conversions are highly simplified. In fact, if you are immersed, if you grew up somewhere with the metric system, you probably won't have to do the things that we're going to do with the prefixes, but I'm showing you what to do as you're learning how to use the metric system. So within the metric system, the base unit for length is called the meter. In case you're not familiar with how long a meter is about 3 inches more than a yard, or it's about 39 inches. Okay, so it's just a little bit longer than a yard, just to give you a little bit of a picture. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to convert in the metric system, and we're just going to convert between the most common bases that there are. And so here are the most common prefixes in the metric system. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to start over here on the left. This is called kilo. That's the prefix. And what kilo means is times 1,000. Okay, 1,000 of something. The abbreviation for kilo is just K. Again, metric system for the most part is super straightforward. The next prefix is called hecto. And hecto means times 100. So you can see we're just decreasing by a power of 10 every time, just like our place value system, if you remember our talking about that. The abbreviation for hecto is an H. The next one is deca, D-E-K-A. Deca means times 10. And because there is another prefix that starts with a D, the abbreviation for deca is DA rather than just plain old D. Here's your base, and I just mentioned for the base for length, that's the meter, okay? And the abbreviation for meter is an M for meter. And now we're going to get to the smaller units. So on the other side, we've got the prefix deci. Deci means times a tenth, or 1/10 of something. The abbreviation for deci is D. The next prefix is centi. Centi means 100th, or times 1/100, and the abbreviation for centi is C. And then finally, last but not least, of the ones that you are going to be responsible for knowing and being able to use is going to be milli. And the prefix milli means 1,000th, or 1 part out of 1,000, and the abbreviation for milli is an M. Now, there's lots of other metric prefixes. Like if you're at all familiar with like computer memory, you see these prefixes like in gigabyte. Giga's a prefix, and mega and tera. These are all metric prefixes. They are all powers of 10. I usually have a chart, and I didn't bring it with me, of just a lot more of the prefixes. But once you can understand converting here, you can convert if I gave you more prefixes. Okay, so we're just doing a real quick introduction of the units you would kind of see in everyday life. So for instance, here is my first problem. I'm going to show you how to get the hang of this. Oh, by the way, in case you need like a way to remember, because kind of the biggest thing you've got to do, you do need to remember these. I'm not going to give you the prefixes on the test. Okay, so I always advise students do a brain dump, and write these down. Here's a nice little sentence. If this helps you, great. If it doesn't, there are others, and you can Google online. But this is the one that for some reason has stuck with me. You can do King Henry died, so it's unfortunate, by drinking chocolate milk. Sometimes people find a little sentence like that makes it easier to remember something rather than remembering kilo, hecto, deca, base, deci, centi, milli, whatever floats your boat, however you learn best. But notice each of these words, King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, is the first letter of the appropriate prefix. The word by is your base. Don't forget your base when you're converting. Otherwise, you will end up in a bad destination. So here we go. My example 3 right there is we are going to convert 457.3 meters to kilometers. Well, because metrics is a base 10 system, just like our numbers, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with meters. That's my base. That's right here in the middle. And then I'm going to kilometers. And what kilometers is, I know that this is going to kind of make a little bit of a mess, and I apologize about that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at meters, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 hops to the left to get to kilo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the decimal right here, and I'm going to move the decimal 1, 2, 3 hops to the left. The same that you just did with your prefixes. And so how many kilometers is 457.3 meters? It is 0.4573 kilometers. That's the result. So because the metric system is base 10 and our numbers base 10, all you're doing is you're looking which way am I going on the prefixes, and I move my decimal place the same direction and the same number of hops. And so you're going to get a whole bunch of chances to practice this. Okay, if you can do that, then you know everything I need you to know basically about the metric system. So do the next one, exercise 6, convert 240 meters into kilometers. Okay, so same thing. I'm just going to rewrite my prefixes here so that I have them to work with and it's not as cluttered. So I've got my kilo, my hecto, my deca, my base, and then my deci, my centi, and my milli. I'm just rewriting the same information right there. And I'm going from my base meters to kilometers. And so from my base to kilometers, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 hops to the left. Now, the reason I gave this problem, I know it's basically the same as the previous one, is where is the decimal on my 240? I don't see one. It's behind the 0. It's implied right there. So since it's right here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 hops to the left. And so that is going to be 0.24. You can write the 0 on the end, but you don't usually have to when you're putting when you have a decimal. So that's 0.24 kilometers. If you wrote 0.240 kilometers, I'm not going to mark you wrong on that. It's totally fine. Everybody tracking with me on what we did right there? All right, well then do this. So by the way, kilometers, if you were driving somewhere that uses the metric system like Mexico or Canada, I've never driven in Puerto Rico, so I don't know what their signs, if they're in metric or if they're in the US system, since they're kind of related to us. But anyway, kilometers are the ones that you would use when you're driving on the highway. And in fact, most of our speedometers in the US, the miles per hour is on the outside, and then on the inside, there's like the kilometers per hour. So you can kind of get a quick conversion that way. So again, we do have exposure to this. It's just not the main system that we use, unfortunately. All right, I would like you to convert 1.25 hectometers to meters, please. So to go from hectometers to meters, I'm going to start at hecto right here. And which way am I moving my decimal place this time? To the right, 2 units to get to the base. So I'm going to take this decimal, I'm going to go 1, 2. And so that means that 1.25 hectometers is 125 meters. Do the next one, 67.9 decimeters to meters, please. Bless you. All right, so 67.9 decimeters. So I'm at deci. Again, I'm going to the base. So I'm moving the decimal place. Which direction? I'm going to go left. I'm starting at deci, right here, the D, and then I'm going to meters, so the base. So I'm going to go left once right here. So I'm going to move this decimal right here left one time. And so that's going to be 6.79 meters. All right, one more where we are relating to the base unit, and then the last few problems are converting between different prefixes. So 142 decameters to meters, please. Okay, deca is right here. I'm going to meters, the base. So how many hops and in which direction am I going? I'm going right once. Now, again, the reason I gave this problem is the decimal on the 142 is implied. It's after the 2. So when I go right to one place, what do I have to add at the end of that number? A 0, yes. So we've got 1,420 meters is how much 142 decameters would be. Again, are we doing okay? Again, once it clicks, and once you remember the prefixes, once you've done enough of them, you don't even have to write anything down. You can just go ahead and you'll know. But so example 4, I'm going to do this one. Now I'm converting between different prefixes. So I'm going to convert from 240 decameters to kilometers this time. So again, here's deca right here, the DA. Which way am I moving to get to kilometers from here? To the left, 1, 2, to the left. So I'm going to take the decimal and I'm going to move it 1, 2 to the left, and that's going to be 2.4 or 2.40 kilometers. All right, convert 33.5 centimeters to decameters, please. Okay, so I'm at centimeters. I'm going to be at C. I'm going to move in the direction of deca. So here I'm at C. I'm going in the direction of deca. How many hops to the left am I going to make with my decimal place? 1 to get to deci, 2 to get to the base, 3 to get to deca. So yes, 3 to the left. So when I do that, I got 1, 2, 3. What do I have to add at the beginning of that number since I ran out of digits this time? You got to have a decimal, and then before the 3 and the 3 and the 5, I got to put a 0 to account for that other place. So 0.0335 decameters. Okay, a couple more practice. We'll revisit this because in the next section we talk about volume and what the metric unit for volume is, and so we'll go through this again. Then in the last section, we'll talk about weight and we'll talk about the metric weight. So we're going to hit this again and again, but for the metric system, the conversions are always straightforward. If you can do this for meters, you can do it for liters, which is volume, and you can do it for grams, which is weight. It does not change at all. Okay. Now for the US system, all the conversions are all over the place. So that's the charts come in really handy. All right. So exercise 11, convert 14 kilometers to decimeters. All right, here I'm at kilo. How many hops do I have to make to the right to get to deci? 1, 2, 3, 4 hops to get to deci, and I'm going to the right. So I've got 14. My decimal place is after the 4. So when I move 4 hops to the right, how many zeros do I have to add on to the end of this number? Yeah, so I've got 1 4 and then 4 zeros. And so that is 140,000 decimeters. Okay, so a lot of those little decimeters. One more, 550 millimeters to decimeters, please. All right, I'm at milli, and I've got to go 1, 2 hops to the left to get to deci. So I'm going to start my decimal point and then 1, 2 hops to the left, and that gives me 5.5 or 5.50. I don't care about the 0 on the end. If you put it on there, decimeters is what my result is. Okay. Are we doing those conversions okay? Hopefully it's gradually getting a little easier for you to do. All right, so before we leave our discussion of length, we are going, oh, actually we're not. I have 2 more problems, 2 more metric problems. So why don't you do both of those right now? I'm going to give you about a minute. Go ahead and do exercise 13 and 14 at the top of the page and convert between those units. All right, so exercise 13, I'm converting 0.345 hectometers into centimeters. So we're going from hecto to centi. So from hecto here to 1, 2, 3, we're going 4 places to the right. So I'm going to take my decimal 1, 2, 3, and then a fourth place. So 3, 4, 5, 0 centimeters is that conversion. And then the last one, I'm going from 0.5 decimeters to millimeters. So deci is right here. And then I'm going to milli, so 1, 2 to the right. So 1, 2 to the right is 50 millimeters when I do that conversion. All right, so what I thought we were turning the page into, I forgot about those two examples, is now that we have introduced ourselves to the US system, which we're probably fairly familiar with for length, and now the metric system for length, we're just going to finish off doing a little more dimensional analysis between the two. So this process, no different than what we were already doing, but I'm going to do my first example. I've got 900 centimeters. I want to convert that to inches. So 900 centimeters. Just like before, I'm going to use a unit conversion. And in the table up above, I tell you that there are 2.54 centimeters in 1 inch. So which of those measurements goes on the bottom, just to refresh you, because we haven't talked about it in 5 minutes? Do I put the centimeters on the bottom or the inches on the bottom? Yeah, so I'm going to put the 2.54 centimeters down here. I'm going to put the 1 inch on the top. That causes my centimeters to cancel out. And I'm going to just round this to 2 decimal places because the conversion was in 2 decimal places. So I've got 900 divided by 2.54, and that is going to be 354.33 when I round. Question? Bottom. No?
I got 2,280, but
Okay, because yes, you multiplied. Now, okay, just so that we're all clear, how do I know that I'm dividing this one instead of multiplying these two numbers? Yeah, because the 2.54 is on the denominator. It's in the bottom, so that means to divide. That's okay. That's a great opportunity for me to speak more because I like to talk. All right, so exercise 15, convert 18 feet to centimeters. So we start off with 18 feet. The direct conversion from the box is that 1 foot is 30.48 centimeters. So I'm going to put the 1 foot in the bottom, the 30.48 centimeters in the top, because that's what I want to end up with. If you don't understand why I put the 1 foot in the bottom and the 30.48 in the top, let's talk about that. And now in my calculator, 18 times 30.48 equals 548.64 centimeters. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Because I start with feet. I don't want feet anymore. So that's why I put the feet in the bottom. So these will cancel. Previous problem, I started out with centimeters. I don't want centimeters anymore. So I put them in the bottom. That way the units cancel. And then that tells you what to do with the number values. Make sense? Awesome. Great clarification question. I love it. All right, exercise 16. If you're driving from here to somewhere that's 125 miles away, how many kilometers did you drive? So the 125 miles in the box up at the top, I'm given the direct conversion that 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. Okay, so I am going to put the 1 mile in the bottom. Again, because I started with miles, I want the miles to go away, so I want them to cancel, and that's 1.6 kilometers. So the miles do cancel. The numbers now tell me that I'm going to multiply those two values. And what do you get when you multiply 125 times 1.6? 200 exactly? Awesome. 200 kilometers. Now remember, I know there's more kilometers, but that's the same distance. It's just a different unit for measuring the same thing. All right, my last example of this and your last problem in this section is this. What if I have a rate? So now I've got 50 miles per hour. I want to know how many kilometers per hour am I going? So I'm going to write out my 50 and I'm going to write my miles and then I'm going to write over my hours. That's a rate. It's just what your car's speedometer tells you. You're going 50 miles an hour. Now, we're not messing with the bottom number here, the hours. We're not converting the hours to anything else. We're just dealing with the miles, so it's exactly the same thing we were just doing. I've got 50 miles per hour. I don't want the miles anymore. I want the miles to be kilometers. So the conversion between miles and kilometers is 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. So again, I'm going to put the 1 mile on the bottom because that's the unit that I want to go away. So now it'll cancel. And that's 1.6 kilometers. I'm going to cross out those miles. And now what's left is I've got kilometers in the top and hours in the bottom. That's great. That's exactly what I wanted. And so when my car speedometer reads 50 miles per hour, how many kilometers per hour is that? That is going to be 80 kilometers per hour. So again, do the reverse. Last problem for this section for you is if you're going 200 kilometers per hour, then how many miles per hour? Convert it into something we're probably a little bit more familiar with. All right, so to finish this up, I've got 200 kilometers per hour. Again, I want to just convert that. All I'm changing is the kilometers to miles. I'm not changing the time from hours to anything else. but the process would be the same if you did want to do that. And so again, the conversion's 1.6 kilometers, but this time I'm putting that on the denominator because again, I start with kilometers. I want the kilometers to go away. So now they do. That's 1 mile. And so now at this time, the numbers tell me to divide. So that's 200 divided by 1.6. I'm going to round that. Well, I don't need to round that. It comes out exactly. That's 125 miles per hour is the equivalent in the US system.